How's it going, everybody? This is Kurt Finn of Kurt Finn Music. Been dodging social media lately, so I figured this was a good time to make this little video here. It's been 2 weeks since we lost the genius of Brian Wilson. Anybody that knows me or is close to me knows that Brian Wilson's probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite musician and composer of all time. His music has had such a lasting effect on me. It's made me a better human being all around. I'd like to think. Helped me a lot with understanding love and disappointment, just many emotions that people struggle with, and mental health issues as well. I was lucky enough to see a lot of Brian Wilson concerts. I saw Pet Sounds live in Europe. Seen Smile live in its entirety. Lucky enough to see the Beach Boys with Brian Wilson, and countless other Brian Wilson shows. It's just an amazing musician. Brian, to me, is just, it's just the most incredible music that I ever heard. When I was little, of course, listening to the Beach Boys with my parents as a young man, you kind of get into that Surfing USA, Fun, 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 and Help Me Rhonda, and all those, really fun songs to hear when you're a kid. And then, as I got older and more into music, getting into, Pet Sounds and, living in Arizona, getting into Pet Sounds real heavy, and then, moving to California and Smile and always searching for the Smile bootlegs. And then, of course, the late 60s and 70s stuff, and, Carl and the Passions and Holland and so on and so forth, and Friends and those records. And then, of course, Brian Wilson's solo music is his resurgence in the 2000s after, leaving Eugene Landy and getting. So what I thought I'd do in honor of Brian Wilson is kind of share with you a couple of the vinyl, a couple of the records that I like, that I think would be, a good representation or something good to recommend to listen to. Started off with something pretty simple. There's a 3-record set. This one is the Beach Boys' Spirit of America. It's a compilation. It's got a lot of those early hits. This Car of Mine, Please Let Me Wonder. Good to My Baby, Little Girl I Once Knew. It's a great introduction into some of their earlier, more rock and roll, innocent stuff. And of course, the album that brought them back in the mid 70s, one of their biggest selling records ever, Beach Boys, Endless Summer. Of course, it's got all the songs in the California Girls, Fun, 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 Catch a Wave, Help Me Rhonda, All Summer Long. This is a great introduction into the Beach Boys. This was the second album. And then the third one was kind of the Pet Sounds and some of the beginning of that late 60s stuff. And it's Sunshine Dream by the Beach Boys, another great compilation. It's got I Can Hear Music, God Only Knows, Bluebirds Over the Mountain. So really cool record to listen to. All 3 of those are pretty cool. Then, of course, you go back to the beginning. Surfer Girl, the Beach Boys. Hearing songs like In My Room, Surfer Girl, Your Summer Dream, Our Car Club, all these songs on here, going back to the original. It's always worth it. Then, of course, you can kind of hear the musical direction change with California Girls. You kind of heard a little bit more of an eclectic sound. Of course, the song California Girls, Let 'Em Run Wild, Girl Don't Tell Me, California Girls, Beach Boys. This is a fantastic Beach Boys record. And, of course, what I believe to be the greatest record ever made, Pet Sounds. This is the album that changed the world. This is the album that changed the music industry when it came out. From Wouldn't It Be Nice to, Let's Go Away for a While, and of course, Caroline No, but the greatest song I think I've ever heard, God Only Knows. Paul McCartney even said that God Only Knows was the greatest song ever written, as Bob Dylan once said that Brian Wilson's One Good Ear should be donated to the Smithsonian. And then there's of course the Smile album, and in my opinion, if Smile will have ever come out, I don't think people would be talking about Sgt. Pepper's the same way. think the Beach Boys' Smile reissue and the completed work of it is an incredible record to listen to. Then, of course, Smile was abandoned and it became Smiley Smile, but this record is really great. It still has a lot of the songs from Smile, like Our Prayer, Vegetables. The one thing that is missing is Surf's Up, that this album is missing, but Heroes and Villains and Vegetables, all those songs, Our Prayer, Beach Boys, Smiley Smile. Then, of course, Beach Boys' Friends. This album is so amazing. My daughter, named Annalie, there's a song called Annalie the Healer on here. Transcendental Meditation, Passing By. Of course, the song Friends. So amazing. And then there's the Beach Boys' Surf's Up. This was a earlier 70s album, but Till I Die is on this album, and it's one of the greatest songs I've ever heard. So is the song Surf's Up, which was omitted from the Smiley Smile album, but Beach Boys' Surf's Up. And then we get to Brian Wilson's favorite album of the Beach Boys. He's always said it's kind of a quirky album, but it's definitely worth a listen. The Beach Boys Love You. This album's a little different, we might say. I think it's really enjoyable. It's very quirky. Almost was a Brian Wilson solo album, but I'll Bet He's Nice is such a great song. And The Night Was So Young, which Brian kind of brought back in his later years when he was on his solo band. And Solar System and Ding Dang. I love this album, but The Beach Boys Love You, which Brian always said was his favorite. And that brings me to one of Brian Wilson's last solo albums. It's a concept album, much like Smile and Pet Sounds. It's called Brian Wilson, That Lucky Old Son. It has a theme that goes through it. He also worked with Van Dyke Parks, which Van Dyke Parks was one of the songwriters on Smile that helped him write a lot of songs. But again, on this album, Midnight's Another Day, which I think is one of the greatest songs, that I've ever heard. I just think this is such a great album. Brian Wilson, That Lucky Old Son. So those are just some of the records I think, you check out to pay your respects to Brian Wilson. I listen to a lot of Beach Boys, and especially in the last 2 weeks. Even if you listen to the newer Beach Boys album that was called That's Why God Made the Radio, there's a whole suite at the end of the album. It's kind of like Brian Wilson's Goodbye. Same with the album No Peer Pressure, which was supposed to be a Beach Boys album, but it didn't work out that way. And the last song on that album is very melancholy, kind of like somebody saying goodbye. But Brian Wilson had such a profound effect, not only on me, but so many other people with his songwriting. Like I said, God Only Knows is one of the greatest songs I've ever heard. And I'm just so thankful that I got to experience Brian Wilson while he was alive still and during his comeback. And just appreciate how important Brian Wilson's music was and his contributions to the music industry and to the human race, really. Listening to God Only Knows really makes me realize how important life is, and how the beauty of love and the heartache of love can always go together, and you can always write about it and feel it and understand that you're not alone in this world. And that any mental health issues that you're going through, you can get through. Anytime you're hurting, you can get through. Music can help you do that. Friends can help you do that. Thanks for tuning in. I just, once again, I'd like to say thank you, Brian Wilson. I hope you have found the peace you were looking for. You can rest now with Carl and Dennis and your mother. And I'm sure you guys are making one hell of a racket up there, wherever you are, wherever you're getting off to. But again, it's Kurt Finn Music, paying my respects to Brian Douglas Wilson. And hope you guys check out some of those records. And if not, just listen to God Only Knows. And you'll feel it in your